Everyone feared the feral dragon babies until they caught a whiff of a human's lunch. The red sun hung low over the colony of Lunaris. Its light spilled across towers made of rust and steel. Every morning the wind carried the taste of dust and burned metal. And every morning people whispered the same thing. "Stay away from the hatchery," they said. "No one who goes near it comes back." Inside the broken valley behind the colony walls, there stood an old bunker. It used to be a research lab during the Dragon Wars. Now it was a cage for the last living dragons, or what was left of them. Tiny, fierce, and wild, the hatchlings were born from fire and code. Their scales shone like silver glass. Their breath hissed like boiling steam. Every attempt to touch them ended in smoke. Even the guards wore flame suits and still got burned. People feared them. Some said they were cursed. Others said they were gods in small form. But no one dared to find out. The commander sealed the hatchery and ordered the place to be watched at all times. The dragons were to be studied from afar, never touched, never trusted. The days passed quietly until a certain morning changed everything. It began like any other shift. The sky hummed with static. The air smelled of ozone. Then someone shouted from the watchtower, "Something's moving near the hatchery." A worker in gray overalls walked toward the gate. He carried a metal box in one hand and a wrench in the other. His name was Eli Harper, a low-level mechanic from Sector 9. He had been sent to fix a broken vent pipe near the hatchery. Nothing special, nothing heroic, just another repair. The guards saw him coming and waved for him to stop. "Stay back, Harper," one yelled. "The dragons are restless today." But Eli just nodded. He had been around machines all his life, and dragons are not. A job was a job. He crouched by the pipe, opened his toolkit, and started working. That was when it happened. A sound, low and strange, drifted from inside the hatchery, not a hiss, not a growl, something softer, curious. The dragons were awake. The nearest one pressed its snout against the metal bars, its eyes glowing faint blue. The guards raised their weapons, hearts pounding, but instead of attacking, the hatchling sniffed the air, once, twice, again. Its nostrils flared as if it had caught a scent it had never known before. Eli didn't notice at first. He was busy tightening a loose bolt, humming a small tune. Then he felt the silence. The whole yard had gone still. He turned his head and froze. The dragon hatchling was staring straight at him. Its sharp eyes followed the movement of his hand. Then, to everyone's shock, it tilted its head. Like a curious child, "What in the name of steel?" whispered a guard. No one moved. Eli slowly set his wrench down. He reached for his lunchbox and opened it. A warm scent escaped, smoked meat, bread, and a faint trace of oil. He had cooked it himself earlier that morning. The smell drifted through the air toward the hatchery. The dragon twitched its nose, then it made a small sound. A chirp. Almost friendly, the guards gasped. They had seen dragons roar, scream, and burn, but never chirp. Eli blinked, unsure if he was dreaming. He held out a small piece of bread. Hands shaking, the dragon sniffed again. Then it pressed its snout through the bars and gently took the bread. No fire, no attack, just quiet chewing. For the first time in years, a human touched a dragon hatchling and lived. The entire station fell silent. One guard dropped his weapon. Another whispered, "It's impossible." But Eli was too stunned to speak. He just sat there, staring at the small creature as it finished the food. The hatchling licked his glove, leaving a faint trail of heat but no burn. It looked up at him again, its eyes softer now, and then it stepped back, curling beside the other hatchlings as if calm. The scientists were called immediately. They ran from the upper decks with scanners and drones. The commander himself arrived, barking orders. Who authorized this mechanic to feed them? He demanded. But no one had an answer. Eli simply stood by the gate, his heart racing. He had done nothing but eat lunch near them. Yet somehow the dragons had chosen not to kill him. That night, the colony could talk of nothing else. Every screen replayed the footage from the hatchery cameras. The moment the dragon leaned forward, the crowd gasping, some called Eli blessed, others called him dangerous, but Eli just wanted to understand. Why had they reacted to him that way? Was it the smell of his lunch? The oil on his hands, or something else entirely? He lay awake in his small cabin, listening to the hum of machines outside. The red winds blew across the desert. Somewhere beyond the wall, the dragons were awake too, their glowing eyes watching the stars. And in their metallic hearts something stirred. Something old, something almost human by morning. Everyone in the colony knew his name, the mechanic who fed the dragons, the man who survived the untouchable, and deep in the hatchery the smallest dragon waited. It sniffed the air again, searching for the scent that had changed everything. Because for the first time since their creation, the hatchlings did not feel alone. They remembered warmth, they remembered kindness, they remembered the taste of something human. And somewhere in their coded memory, a spark of recognition began to grow. The spark that would one day rewrite the future of both species. But for now, the world still called them monsters. Only Eli Harper had seen the truth hidden in their eyes, and he had no idea that his simple lunch had started the first bond between man and dragon. The guards still whispered warnings, the commander still planned containment, but nothing could stop what had already begun, because the dragons had smelled humanity, and they had chosen not to destroy it. That was the moment everything changed. And it all started with a mechanic, a lunchbox, and the silence that followed by dawn. The whole colony of Lunaris buzzed with one name, Eli Harper. The man who fed the feral hatchlings and survived. Every corridor echoed with rumors. Was he part dragon? Was he wearing a secret shield? Or had the beasts finally gone tame? Nobody really knew, but deep inside the research deck, the scientists were not sleeping. Dr. Kellen Rowe, head of xenogenetics, watched the camera feed again and again. He zoomed in on the moment the hatchling sniffed Eli's lunch. The creature's pupils widened, its body relaxed, and a faint pulse of light moved under its scales. "Look," he said to his team, "that response isn't instinct. It's recognition." His assistant stared in silence, afraid to believe what they saw. Meanwhile, Eli sat in a small security room. 2 guards stood by the door, rifles pointed at the floor. On the table sat his metal lunchbox, still half open. He kept staring at it as if it held the answer to a question older than the war itself. The door hissed open and Dr. Rowe stepped in. "Mr. Harper," he said quietly, "I need to know what you fed them." Eli shrugged. "Nervous, just roast meat, bread, and a drop of machine oil from my hands," he said. Dr. Rowe blinked. "Machine oil?" Eli nodded. "I fix engines all day, it gets on everything." The scientist leaned closer, his eyes shining with curiosity. "Interesting," he murmured. "Very interesting." Within the hour, they took Eli to the observation bay. The hatchery lay behind a thick wall of reinforced glass. Inside, the dragons moved restlessly, wings flicking like sparks. When Eli entered the chamber on the safe side, the hatchlings stopped. Every sensor in the room went wild. Heart rates dropping, heat levels steadying, aggression falling to 0. The guards froze, Dr. Rowe whispered. "They know him." Eli raised his hands, unsure what to do. "Hey there," he said softly, his voice trembling. The smallest dragon crawled forward. Pressing its snout against the glass, it made a low, vibrating hum. The same sound engines made when warming up. Eli smiled without meaning to. "Guess you like lunch," he joked under his breath. Behind him, the scientist scribbled notes like mad. But then something unexpected happened. The hatchery lights flickered for a split second. All systems went dark when power returned. The hatchlings were gone from the cameras. An alarm blared through the corridors. "Containment breach," shouted a guard. Red lights flashed. Doors locked, chaos erupted. Dr. Rowe yelled, "Find them before the commander hears." Eli's pulse raced. He hadn't moved, but somehow the dragons had vanished. Where would they go? He asked. No one answered. Then from above came a sharp metallic cry. The ceiling vent burst open. A hatchling dropped out and landed right in front of him. The soldiers raised their weapons instantly. "Don't shoot," Eli shouted. "It's just a baby." The creature looked up at him with glowing eyes. It didn't hiss or attack, it just pressed its head against his boot. Everyone in the room froze, Dr. Rowe whispered. They escaped to him. The commander stormed in seconds later, face red with rage. "What is the meaning of this?" he bellowed. Then he saw the dragon at Eli's feet. The room went deathly quiet. Eli tried to step back, but the dragon followed. "Sir, I didn't do anything," Eli stammered. The commander's hand twitched near his sidearm. "Get that thing away from him," he ordered. But the dragon growled, on low and warning. It was defending him. The tension grew thicker than smoke. Dr. Rowe stepped forward carefully. "Commander," he said, "I believe the mechanic emits a scent or frequency the hybrids respond to." The commander glared. They're dragons, not pets. He turned to Eli. You will be quarantined until we know what you've done. Eli's heart sank. Guards surrounded him. The hatchling hissed and spread its tiny wings. Flames rippled along its back. Don't hurt them, Eli pleaded. One wrong move and the entire lab could burn. Suddenly, the fire alarm screamed. The temperature rose sharply, but then Eli knelt down and whispered, It's okay, calm down. His voice was quiet, steady, almost mechanical. The dragon blinked and stopped glowing. The alarms died out. Everyone stared in disbelief, Dr. Rowe said softly. He can control them with tone alone. After that, the commander had no choice. He couldn't risk killing the mechanic while the dragons obeyed him. Instead, he ordered Dr. Rowe to study them together, and so Eli found himself assigned to the hatchery. Every morning he brought tools and his lunch. Every evening the dragons gathered near the gate when they heard his footsteps. He fixed pipes while they watched like curious children. One hatchling, the smallest, silver with blue-tinted scales, and never left his side. Eli named it Spark, though he wasn't sure why. It seemed to like the name, chirping every time he said it. But the more time he spent there, the stranger things became. When he touched the metal walls, the dragons mimicked his movements. When he worked on engines, they echoed his hums. Once, while he was fixing a valve, Spark pressed its claws on the control panel, and the power lines responded as if the creature understood circuits. Eli stared, amazed. These things are learning, he whispered. Dr. Rowe, watching from the other side of the glass, nodded slowly. Or remembering, he said, because they might not be pure beasts at all that night. Eli sat alone in his cabin again. He couldn't sleep. The image of Spark's glowing eyes filled his mind. How could an animal understand machines? He looked down at his hands, covered in scars, grease, and the faint smell of fuel. Maybe we're not so different, he muttered. Outside, lightning rolled across the horizon. In the storm's light, a shadow passed over the colony's towers, one far too large to be a hatchling. A grown dragon, metallic and silent, watching. Eli didn't see it, but Spark did. Inside the hatchery, the little dragon lifted its head, eyes reflecting silver lightning. It made a soft call that none of the humans heard, and far above, the great shape answered with a distant roar, a warning, a promise, a beginning, because something ancient had awakened, and the mechanic who brought lunch to monsters was now tied to their destiny. The commander still didn't trust him. Dr. Rowe saw him as the key to a mystery, and Eli himself felt torn between fear and wonder. He didn't want fame or war, he just wanted to fix things. But soon he would learn that some things couldn't be fixed, only changed forever. And somewhere in the dark, Spark curled beside his empty lunchbox, its heart glowing faintly, beating not like a beast but like a small machine, a bridge between human and dragon, waiting for what came next. Morning came cold and heavy over Lunaris. The storm had left the ground wet. The sky bruised with violet clouds inside the research station. The lights flickered to life one by one. Dr. Rowe stood by the hatchery window. His face pale, he hadn't slept all night. Something about the footage from yesterday haunted him on the screen. Spark touched the control panel and the entire hatchery power grid pulsed like it recognized the creature's touch. It was as if the dragons could speak to the machines without words. That should have been impossible. They were made of flesh and fire, not wire and code. And yet the readings said otherwise. Eli Harper entered the lab quietly. His eyes still tired, his lunchbox in hand as always. Morning, Doc, he said. Dr. Rowe turned, studying him like he was part of the puzzle. Morning, Harper. How's our little friend today? Eli smiled faintly. Hungry like me. The scientist motioned for him to sit. I need to show you something, he said. He played a recording from last night. The screen showed Spark pressing its claws against the control screen. Energy flowed into the circuits, forming strange geometric shapes almost like writing. Do you see that? Dr. Rowe whispered. That's not random. Eli frowned. What do you mean? These creatures aren't just animals. They're part of something designed, the doctor said. And I think they're trying to communicate. Before Eli could answer, alarms blared again. Red lights flashed along the corridor. A voice echoed through the speakers. Commander to Lab Deck 3 immediately. Dr. Rowe cursed under his breath. They found something, he said. Come with me. They hurried down metal stairs into the lower containment zone. Guards lined the hall, faces tense. In the center of the floor lay one of the dragon eggs that had failed to hatch years ago. Except now it was glowing, Veins of blue light ran through the shell. Pulsing like a heartbeat, Eli stepped closer. "Wasn't that one declared inert?" he asked. Dr. Rowe nodded, eyes wide. "Yes, it was dead." The commander appeared, his face stone hard. "Explain this," he demanded. No one could. The egg cracked slightly, releasing a faint hum. Not a roar, not a cry, but a digital tone. Every monitor nearby flickered. Displaying random symbols, Eli recognized one, a pattern he'd seen Spark draw on the wall with its claws. "Doc," he said slowly. "It's the same code." The scientist's breath caught. "They're sending signals," he whispered. "To something or someone." The commander frowned. "This experiment has gone too far," he said. "I want the mechanic removed from the hatchery," Dr. Rowe protested. "Sir, with respect, he's the only one they trust." "I don't care," the commander barked. "If they've learned to control our systems, he could be the reason." Eli's chest tightened. "I didn't do anything wrong," he said. But his words were lost in the noise. Guards moved in, grabbing his arms. Spark, who had been watching from the shadows, screeched in fury. The lights burst, sparks raining from the ceiling. The dragon slammed its tail against the wall, cracking the reinforced glass. "Restrain it!" the commander shouted. But the soldiers hesitated. The creature was faster than their eyes could track. Eli shouted, "Stop, Spark, calm down." The small dragon froze instantly. Trembling, it looked at Eli, its eyes flickering between blue and red. Slowly it backed away and lowered its wings. Everyone in the room stared, Dr. Rowe whispered. "He's their command key." Hours later, Eli sat locked in an isolation cell. He stared through the glass at his empty lunchbox sitting on the counter outside. The silence felt heavy. From the corridor came muffled voices. Dr. Rowe arguing with the commander. "You can't keep him locked up, he's part of the link." "He's a risk," the commander snapped. "And I won't let a civilian control my station." The door opened and Dr. Rowe slipped in. He looked tired, nervous, but determined. "Eli, listen to me," he said. "I ran some tests. Your blood shows trace signatures of synthetic compounds, metallic nanoresidues." Eli frowned. "In plain words, Doc, you've been working around hybrid tech for years. The fumes, the oil, the coolant," Dr. Rowe said. "They've merged with your system. You're carrying the same base code that's in the dragons." Eli went cold. "So? You're saying I'm infected?" The scientist shook his head. "No, not infected. Connected, that's why they recognize you." Eli swallowed hard. He didn't know whether to be afraid or amazed. Connected to dragons, creatures built from war, machines, and mystery. He remembered how Spark had looked at him, not like an animal, but like a lost child finding family. Before Dr. Rowe could explain further, the power went out again. The walls trembled, the sirens wailed. A massive roar shook the entire station. This time it wasn't Spark. The sound came from above, deep, powerful, ancient. The ceiling cracked, dust raining down. Dr. Rowe's eyes went wide. "Oh no," he whispered. "It's the Alpha." Through the upper viewing glass, a colossal shadow passed. Wings of steel and flame blotted out the red light. Its roar made the air vibrate. The grown dragon had returned. The one that watched from the storm, every alarm blared. External threat detected. Eli pressed his hands against the window. Outside, the Alpha dragon hovered above the hatchery. Staring straight down, and inside, Spark screamed in return, not in fear. But in recognition, the entire station began to shake. Sparks flew from broken wires, glass shattered. Guards scrambled for cover. "Evacuate," shouted the commander. "Get everyone to the shelters." But Eli didn't move. He looked at Dr. Rowe. "They're not attacking," he said quietly. "They're calling." Dr. Rowe stared at him. Unsure whether to believe it or not, Eli continued. "Let me go to them." "Are you insane?" the commander yelled. "You'll die the moment you step out there." Eli looked up at the sky through the cracks, at the massive dragon above. "I don't think they want war anymore," he said. "I think they want to go home," the commander refused. But when the Alpha dragon's tail smashed into the perimeter wall, the power grid exploded, the doors blew open, alarms failed, and chaos filled every hallway. In the confusion, Dr. Rowe pulled Eli free. "Go," he said. "If you're right, you're our only chance." Eli ran through smoke and sparks. The air outside burned with heat and static he could barely see. But Spark was waiting, wings spread wide, eyes glowing brighter than ever. It made a soft chirp and nudged him forward. Above them, the Alpha roared again, shaking the ground. Eli lifted his hand. Easy, he said. I'm here. The great beast lowered its head, its molten eyes focusing on the tiny mechanic. All around, soldiers aimed their weapons, but none fired. Something in the air felt ancient and electric. Then from deep within its chest, the Alpha exhaled a wave of light. A data stream, not fire, but energy filled with patterns, shapes, and symbols. The same code Eli had seen before. It hit him like a heartbeat in that instant. He saw flashes, cities burning, machines rising, dragons being built in labs by human hands. He saw what the scientists had hidden for decades. The dragons weren't born. They were engineered from human templates. Each hatchling carried the spark of a person once lost in the war. And Spark, the little dragon beside him, carried something else entirely. Eli gasped, falling to his knees. Dr. Rowe's voice echoed through his headset. "What's happening out there?" Eli whispered. "They remember us. They were never our enemies." Above him, the Alpha spread its wings and roared again. But this time the sound wasn't rage, and it was grief, the kind that shook the heart of the world. And deep in that roar was a word that no one could mistake. A word spoken not in sound but in meaning: home. The sun had dipped below the horizon, and the sky turned dark red, like molten metal cooling in a forge. The air around the dragon enclosure shimmered with rising heat. Every breath felt heavy, and even the steel gates seemed to hum with tension. Ryland stood inside the observation bay, staring through the reinforced glass. The hatchlings, who once cowered in shadows, now circled restlessly. They hissed and snapped at one another, their scales glowing faintly, like embers waiting to ignite. Something was changing in them, something no scientist had ever seen before. Dr. Kale entered behind him, her face pale but determined. "They're adapting too quickly," she said quietly. "Whatever bond they formed with you, it's accelerating their growth cycle." Ryland frowned, his hands tightening into fists. "You mean they're becoming stronger because of me?" Kale nodded slowly. "Or because of your scent, your energy, your emotions? They're reflecting you somehow." Before Ryland could respond, an alarm blared through the entire facility. A shrill red light bathed the room, and the voice of an automated system echoed, "Containment breach detected in Zone 3. Repeat, Zone 3 compromised." Ryland's stomach twisted. He turned to the monitor. One of the hatchlings had broken through its enclosure wall. It wasn't attacking anyone. It was running fast through the metallic corridors, following something unseen without thinking. Ryland sprinted out the door. "Stay here," he shouted to Kale. The sound of his boots pounded against the metal floor as the alarms screamed overhead. He knew that hatchling. It was the smallest one, the one that had trembled when he first offered food. He followed the trail of scorch marks. The creature's fire left glowing cracks on the walls. The heat was so intense it warped the air. When he turned the corner, he froze. The hatchling stood in the center of the hall, but it wasn't alone. It was facing down a group of armed guards, rifles drawn, lasers aimed. The soldiers' voices trembled as they shouted commands. "Back! Get back or we'll fire!" The little dragon hissed, its wings trembling. Its eyes glowed with fear. Not rage, Ryland could see it. He stepped forward, raising his hands. "Wait. Don't shoot. It's just scared." "Stay back, mechanic," one of the guards yelled. "This thing's unstable." But Ryland didn't stop. His heart was pounding. He spoke softly. "Hey, it's okay, remember me?" The hatchling turned its head, its glowing eyes softening slightly. A low, uncertain chirp escaped its throat. Then a spark, too bright, too sudden, flared from the creature's mouth. The air ignited and a jet of fire shot toward the ceiling. The guards panicked and opened fire. The sound was deafening. Ryland dove forward, shielding the dragon with his body as sparks and smoke filled the corridor. He shouted, "Stop! Cease fire!" But his voice was drowned out by the chaos. The heat wave pushed everyone back, and then silence. When the smoke cleared, the dragon was curled against Ryland's chest. Trembling, alive but terrified, the walls were scorched black. Alarms still blaring in the distance, Dr. Kale and more personnel rushed in. The sight stopped them cold. Ryland was kneeling in a circle of ash, untouched by flame, his uniform half-burned. The dragon clinging to him like a frightened child. Kale whispered, "This shouldn't be possible." The dragon looked up at Ryland and pressed its snout against his hand. A faint glow spread from the creature's chest into his. It wasn't fire, it was light, alive and pulsing. Ryland gasped. A sudden vision flickered behind his eyes. Mountains. Ancient dragons flying through storms, rivers of flame. And a single voice whispering through the roar, chosen not by power, but by heart. He staggered, the glow fading, the corridor silent except for the hum of broken lights. When Ryland looked up, the guards were staring at him. Not with anger now, but awe. Dr. Kale finally spoke. Whatever bond you've made, it's rewriting everything we know about dragons. Ryland touched the dragon's head gently. Then we better make sure the world's ready for what comes next, he said softly. Outside, thunder rolled through the distant clouds. But it wasn't from a storm. It was from wings, massive ancient wings, beating high above the clouds. Somewhere beyond the mountain walls something had awakened, something that had been waiting for a signal. And tonight that signal had finally come. The fire within had been lit, and nothing in the human world or the dragons would ever be the same again. The night that followed the breach was unlike any other. The stars above the mountain seemed to flicker restlessly, like they were whispering secrets to the earth below. The air was charged, heavy, and alive with static. Every dragon in the enclosure, feral or calm, had gone silent. Heads raised, eyes glowing faint gold. Something ancient was stirring, and every creature could feel it. Ryland stood alone on the observation deck, his hands resting on the steel railing. The repaired hatchling slept beside him, curled like a cat, its warm breath puffing tiny clouds of smoke into the cold air. The silence felt too deep, too watchful behind him. Dr. Kale's footsteps echoed softly. She carried a datapad, its screen filled with endless readings. You haven't slept, she said quietly. Neither have they, Ryland replied, nodding toward the dragons. They're waiting for something. Kale hesitated. We analyzed the energy readings from your body during the breach. Your heartbeat synced with the hatchlings perfectly. Ryland didn't answer. His eyes stayed fixed on the horizon where lightning flashed in slow motion. White, scalded then blue. It wasn't natural lightning. It had shape, rhythm, almost like language. Kale continued. Whatever happened, Ryland, it connected you to them, to their hive network. If the legends are true, it means, before she could finish, the floor vibrated beneath them. A low, distant rumble echoed through the valley, not mechanical, alive. Ryland and Kale rushed outside as the alarms began to sound. But no one inside the facility understood what they were seeing. Across the dark horizon, streaks of golden fire began to descend from the sky, like comets tearing through clouds. The light hit the nearby mountains, sending shockwaves of heat and sound across the landscape. Are those meteors? Kale gasped. Ryland shook his head slowly. No, he said, his voice tight. They're wings. The first of the ancient dragons landed with a thunderous impact that shook the earth. It was enormous, its scales the color of deep bronze and its eyes glowing like molten gold. It let out a roar that wasn't just sound, it was command, a voice that vibrated inside every human chest. The younger hatchlings inside the facility screamed in reply, pressing against their enclosures. Wings spreading, claws scraping at the walls. Kale stumbled back. This can't be happening, they've been extinct for millennia. Ryland didn't move, his breath caught as he felt something deep within him stir. That same glow from before flickered faintly through his veins. The little hatchling beside him raised its head, chirping weakly in response to the giant outside. And then, impossibly, the massive dragon turned its gaze toward them. Its voice, low and ancient, rumbled through the valley. Not through the air, but through thought itself. Who dares awaken the lineage of flame? Kale clutched her ears, gasping, but Ryland stood frozen, somehow understanding. He stepped forward, his voice shaking. I didn't mean to, I just tried to help. The dragon's eyes narrowed. Help? The ground split beneath its claws, and fire poured out in thin rivers, yet Ryland didn't flinch. The little hatchling waddled between them, chirping again, like a child begging a parent to stop fighting. The ancient dragon lowered its head slowly. The moment stretched, tense. Fragile, finally it spoke again, softer. The bond has chosen. The fire returns. Kale blinked in disbelief. The bond? She whispered. What bond? The sky above cracked with lightning, revealing more figures emerging through the storm. Massive dragons of silver, crimson and blue, circling in silent arcs. Each of them released a deep hum that resonated across the land. The world itself seemed to be responding. Machines inside the research station flickered. Glass vibrated. Magnetic fields spiked and every metal surface began to sing a low, haunting note. Kale's voice trembled. Rylan, this isn't just an awakening, it's a recall signal. They're summoning their kind. Rylan's heart pounded. He turned back toward the facility. If they're calling the others, what about the ferals inside? What if they answer it too? A sudden screech cut through the air, loud enough to shatter glass from inside the base. One of the enclosures exploded outward, a storm of smoke and flame bursting free. A massive feral dragon, scales black and jagged, tore through the ruins, wings beating wildly. Its eyes glowed red, not gold, and it looked straight at Rylan. Kale shouted, "Run!" But Rylan didn't. He stared as the creature charged forward, claws slicing through metal walls like paper. The little hatchling jumped between them, crying out, a desperate, high-pitched sound that echoed with emotion, and for a split second the black dragon stopped. Its chest heaved, trembling as if something deep inside it was fighting itself. Rylan whispered, "You can feel it too, can't you?" Then an explosion of light, golden and crimson, bursting between the two dragons, blinding everyone nearby. When the light faded, Rylan was gone. Kale screamed his name, but there was only silence. Only the hatchling's faint cry echoing through the ruins. Above, the ancient dragons continued to circle, and in their golden eyes a reflection burned, of a human man, standing in fire, unharmed, surrounded by visions of both human cities and dragon skies. A prophecy whispered in the old tongue of flame. When the fire of man meets the soul of dragon, the two worlds will burn or be reborn. The choice now rested with Rylan. Wherever he had vanished, and as the storm rolled across the valley, Kale whispered to herself, "He's not gone." The dragons took him. The awakening had begun. Rylan's world dissolved into light. It wasn't fire that surrounded him, it was energy, pulsing, breathing, alive. The air shimmered in colors he couldn't name, shifting from gold to violet to deep crimson, and every hue carried a hum, a heartbeat, a rhythm. He gasped, stumbling forward, but there was no ground beneath his feet, only soft waves of glowing mist. Each step rippled like he was walking across liquid fire, yet it didn't burn. Instead, it felt warm, welcoming. "Ancient, where am I?" he whispered. His voice echoed strangely, as if the world itself repeated his words. A deep, melodic tone answered, not from behind, not from ahead, but from everywhere at once. "You stand in the ember vale where the breath of dragons meets the dream of men." Rylan spun around, and from the mist rose a figure enormous and graceful, a dragon unlike any he'd ever seen, translucent, made entirely of flame and light. Its wings stretched wide, spanning miles, and its eyes glowed like dying stars. He took a shaky step back. "You're real?" The dragon's laughter was a low thunder. "Reality is merely the shadow of truth, little maker of machines. You stand within the origin, the pulse from which both fire and flesh were born." Rylan's chest tightened. He remembered the prophecy, the whispers, the voice in his vision. "Why me? Why did you choose me?" The dragon lowered its head, the glow of its eyes softening. "Because you fed the hungry, not for glory, but for kindness. You reached out without armor. You touched flame with bare hands, and did not fear to be burned." Rylan frowned. "I didn't do anything special. I just helped." The dragon's gaze deepened. "To the heart of fire, that is what makes one special." Suddenly, the air around him rippled, showing visions, memories not his own. Great dragons soaring over cities made of molten crystal, humans walking beside them as equals, forging machines powered by flame and faith. Then the fall, humans grew fearful. Dragons grew proud, and the bond shattered. The ember veil closed, trapping both species in their own worlds of silence. Rylan stepped closer, drawn into the vision. "So this place, it's between? Between what was and what could be," the dragon said. "And you, Rylan, carry the key." Before Rylan could respond, a sudden tremor shook the realm. The golden mist darkened, twisting into storm clouds of black smoke. The dragon turned sharply, its eyes blazing. "No, it cannot be. She awakens." Rylan blinked. "Who?" The ground beneath him split open, lightning bursting through from the chasm below. A massive shadow emerged, fangs, claws, and eyes burning with crimson rage. Its roar tore through the veil, making the entire realm quake. "The corrupted queen," the great dragon said grimly. "Once guardian of balance, now the destroyer of flame." Rylan stared in horror. The queen was unlike any dragon he'd seen. Her wings tattered, her scales cracked like volcanic stone, and her breath spilled smoke thick enough to smother stars. The great dragon spread its wings to shield him. You must go, human. The queen feeds on emotion, on doubt, on fear. Leave now before she finds your mind. But Rylan shook his head. No, if I run, she'll follow me back to the human world. I can't let that happen. The dragon looked down at him, studying his determination. Then face her. But remember, your strength is not in fire, but in heart. The mist around Rylan began to swirl faster, forming symbols, circles of light. He felt heat build in his palms, bright lines crawling up his arms like living flame. The dragon's voice echoed, You carry the mark of the bonded one. Let the fire see your truth. A roar split the air. The corrupted queen lunged forward, her claws tearing through the golden mist. The great dragon leapt to meet her, their collision shaking the sky apart. Rylan was thrown backward, spinning through light and fire. His body burned with energy, but inside that chaos a whisper guided him. Remember who you are. He hit the ground hard this time. Solid rock. The heat around him faded, replaced by the cold air of reality. He looked up. He was back in the human world on the cliffs above the facility. Smoke and fire rising below. The stars burned blood red, the air vibrating with the cries of dragons, feral, ancient, and everything in between. Dr. Kale's voice came through his earpiece, filled with shock and relief. Rylan? Is that you? You've been gone for hours. The sky's turning red. What's happening? Rylan stood slowly, his eyes glowing faint gold. They're coming, Kale, he said softly, and we're out of time. As he looked to the horizon, he saw shapes moving within the storm, hundreds of dragons flying toward the mountains. But above them all, hidden behind the clouds, two crimson eyes burned like dying suns. The queen had found her way through the veil, and the final battle between worlds had begun. The world was on fire. The mountains trembled under the weight of wings, and the sky split apart with the sound of thunder that wasn't thunder. The dragons had come. Not just the ancient ones, not just the feral kind, but all of them. Drawn by something greater than instinct, drawn by the call of their queen. From the cliffs above the research station, Rylan stood in the storm, his mechanic's uniform torn, his hands glowing faintly with ember light. The small hatchling beside him growled softly, its scales flickering between gold and crimson, sensing what was coming. Dr. Kale's voice crackled through the comm again. Rylan, we're detecting magnetic waves stronger than anything on record. The Queen's presence, it's warping the entire atmosphere. He didn't reply. His gaze was fixed on the horizon, where clouds spun like whirlpools of fire. From the center of that storm, two massive wings unfolded, and the corrupted queen emerged. Her roar shattered the air, a sound so powerful it made glass explode miles away. Below, soldiers and scientists scrambled to evacuate. Their weapons were useless. Energy rifles sparked out like dying fireflies. Drones fell from the sky, burned by invisible heat. Kale's voice trembled. She's absorbing the planet's energy. Rylan, if she keeps feeding, she'll ignite the atmosphere itself. Rylan closed his eyes. The dragon hatchling pressed against his leg. He could still feel the pulse of the ember veil deep inside him, a faint rhythm connecting him to something ancient and alive. Then, in the howling wind, a familiar voice echoed inside his head, the voice of the great flame dragon from the veil. The queen was not born in darkness. Rylan, she was made by it. She carries the memory of betrayal, a fire used to destroy instead of protect, show her the heart she's forgotten. Rylan opened his eyes, the glow in them brighter now. I'll try, he whispered, but if she doesn't listen. The sky cracked open again. The queen landed on the valley floor with a thunderous crash. Her wings spread wide, blocking out the moon. Her breath poured rivers of smoke that scorched the ground black. Rylan stepped forward, feeling the heat scorch his face. The hatchling followed, trembling but unyielding. The queen's voice thundered in his mind. Human fool, you dare summon what you cannot control. I smell your fear, your fragile heart, your fleeting life. Rylan shouted over the roaring wind. You don't have to do this. The war's over. There's still a world left to save. Her laughter was like breaking mountains. A world? That world turned on us, chained us, hunted us. I was once their guardian until they burned my children in their forges. Her eyes blazed crimson, and fire erupted toward Rylan. He raised his arm instinctively, and a golden barrier of flame, burst from his hand. The air shimmered as the two fires collided, red and gold twisting together in a violent storm. The shockwave flattened the cliffs, sending Kale and the soldiers tumbling. When the smoke cleared, Rylan was still standing. His arm glowed like molten glass. The queen stared in disbelief. "You bear our flame, but you are not one of us." Rylan's voice was calm, almost sorrowful. "Maybe not, but I remember what it means." He took another step forward. "Fire isn't just destruction, it's warmth. It's creation. It's life. You've just forgotten." The queen hesitated, her head lowering slightly. The wind howled around them, carrying the cries of countless dragons above, circling, waiting. Then the little hatchling walked in front of Rylan, tiny but fearless. It chirped softly and spread its small wings, golden sparks flickering across its body. For a moment the queen's red eyes softened, her claws trembled, and in that flicker of hesitation a memory returned, of a time when she too guarded young hatchlings beside a human craftsman, but the darkness fought back. Her roar tore through the valley again. Her body convulsed as black smoke poured from her chest. Rylan realized it then. The corruption wasn't her choice. It was consuming her from within. He closed his eyes, feeling the ember mark on his arm burn hotter. The voice from the veil whispered again. "The bonded one can give back what was lost, but every gift demands a cost." He knew what that meant. He turned to Kale's distant voice over the radio. "If I don't make it, tell them dragons weren't our enemies." "Rylan, don't you dare." But it was too late. He placed his hand on the ground, fire spreading in a golden circle beneath him. The energy surged upward, forming a bridge of light that reached toward the queen. The hatchling screeched, trying to hold him back, but Rylan smiled softly. "It's okay, Padima, keep them safe." He stepped forward into the fire and it swallowed him whole. The light shot straight into the queen's chest, and for a moment the world stood still. The red in her eyes flickered, then turned gold. The clouds parted. The wind stopped. Then, an explosion of light so bright it turned night into day. When the light faded, the queen stood silently, her massive wings folded, the corruption gone. Her eyes shimmered with tears that turned to steam as they fell. In front of her, where Rylan had stood, only ashes remained, glowing softly like embers. The hatchling crept toward them, chirping softly. Pressing its snout against the warm ash, Kale fell to her knees, whispering, "He did it. He actually did it." The queen lifted her head, looking to the horizon, and let out a roar that shook the mountains, not of rage but mourning and gratitude. Dragons across the sky echoed her cry, one by one, filling the heavens with a chorus of fire and wind, and then, from the ashes, a faint, golden light rose, shaping itself into a small ember that drifted toward the queen's heart. "The fire of man meets the soul of dragon," the old prophecy whispered through the wind, "and the world is reborn." Years later, legends would speak of a mechanic who touched flame and never burned, of dragons that flew again beside humans, guarding the skies not as beasts, but as brothers. And on quiet nights when the stars burned bright and the wind carried the scent of smoke and metal, the dragons would look to the heavens and whisper, "He still watches, in the fire between worlds." The last ember lived on, not as destruction but as hope.